Hey, welcome back to the Z Plus Everyday Challenge. Look at my chest. I don't know why. But hey, welcome. And today we're looking at not Frozen 2, but the making of Frozen 2. This is Into the Unknown, making Frozen 2. So, yeah, it's actually not a single episode. I thought it was going to be like a documentary film, but it's actually a series. It's a six-part series. There's one season. I imagine there's only going to be one season, unless they really have a lot more to tell us. They really go into depth on all aspects of the film. Considering you have to understand that beyond, you know, owning Star Wars, Lucasfilm, and Marvel and everything else, animation is Disney's bread and butter. We all know this, but the phenomenon of Frozen, whether you personally like it or not, uh, or just because you're sick of hearing "Let It Go" over and over and over again, it doesn't. That none of that has any bearing. This is a humongous tentpole for the Frozen brand is a humongous tentpole for Disney, and the idea that a sequel would never be made is highly unlikely. So the stakes are pretty high when putting something like this together. Bring the cast back together, making songs that live up to the original, and animation that jumps leaps and bounds beyond what it originally was, just due to the technology advancements. You can see, even though, 2014, 2019, I think, were the 2 years they came out. I know this one's 2019. Yeah, yes. So there's a 5 year difference. You can watch the two back to back, and you can see how much it's matured, the animation. Uh, but that's not the only challenge. I mean, that's just the way technology works. In this case, it's a personal investment. It's a people's lives are on the line. Not lives like somebody's going to die, but it's the idea that they understand the pressure. They can't just phone this in. They can't. I'm going to be really bratty about this, but you know how they tend to, in the early 2000s, they made a ton of direct-to-video sequels to classics, and yes, while people who made them probably felt really proud of themselves and were really trying to do their best effort, a lot of it, with some exceptions, a lot of it just looked like a means to cash in and go, hey, look, here's familiar characters. People might want to see more. Let's sort of just put that out there with familiar names so we can put a dollar sign on it. And not all of them worked out well. Some of them worked out great. You can probably see me talking about them in previous episodes. But Frozen is too big of a thing at this point for them to go, yeah, just poop something out there. So yeah, what you get in this documentary. I only watched the first two episodes. Episode 3 is Journey to Atahalan, if you know the movie, you know what that means. But it says that director Chris Buck and Kristen Bell share the deep meaning behind Anna's dot dot dot. Well, you could have put more words on there, I have a feeling, but apparently not. But yeah, that's episode 3. Episode 1 basically talks about them coming back together. It gives you some quick insights to the different people who are making them, everywhere from the animators, from this young woman whose name slips my mind, but she's super young. She's it's just amazing. It's great that somebody so young, so talented, has an opportunity like this to work on something that's humongous. And you see her having to work through just animating a little, maybe 30-second scene at most. And when Elsa is doing Into the Unknown, the big song from the movie, and she's running up the hillside, creating an extension with ice up the cliffside, and it's all about trying to figure out how she would step up to that moment for the big finish. And that level of detail is something that's really important to the character, to the people who for the song, for everything else. It's kind of crazy that That girl's going to spend 2 years working on 30 seconds of a scene, on and off. 2 years. It's kind of crazy. They visit. Each of the actors show up. Kristen Bell, Idina Menzel. I'm not John Travolta. I'm not going to screw that up. Josh Gad and Jonathan Groff, the four main big guys in the cast, guys in the cast, and they each make an appearance. You get to see them working through some of their lines and some of the music and how they record based off of demos that are just done on a synthesizer. And then you get to see the moment for Into the Unknown when they record with an actual orchestra, like 100-piece orchestra or something like that. I don't know. They're in the studio. You get to see Idina Menzel lip syncing her own lines as she's listening to what she's already recorded, now played with a full orchestra, and it's to me I mean, yeah, maybe Frozen's not my most favorite movie in the world, but for that moment to be able to empathize with what they're feeling, it almost brought tears in my eyes, because you can see the directors, Jennifer Lee and Chris Buck. Yeah, Jennifer Lee, make sure I got that right. Jennifer Lee and Chris Buck. You see Jennifer Lee just, oh my God, this sounds, it. It's the best people in the business recording this stuff, and it's got to be incredibly rewarding to see one of their big signature pieces come to life fully. It's kind of neat. The second episode shows a number of situations where Jonathan Groff, who has to record in New York because he lives somewhere on the East Coast. Some of my friends will tell me he lives in Pennsylvania, not far from them. But he records on the East Coast, and some of his music, and also, by the way, some of the people who wrote the songs, Bobby and anyway, the people, I should know who their names are because I've been hearing them say their names constantly over the last 2 hours, hour and a half, and but the two of them are also based in Brooklyn, so they wrote the original music that some people love and a few people hate, because it's just overplayed. Yes, I understand that, but there's no reason to hate it. Anyway, they wrote a classic. They wrote classics, and that families and kids are going to love forever. That trigger emotions that will live with them for a lifetime. And there's a moment where they're since Jonathan Groff, who is a singer, who is a musician, didn't have a song in the first Frozen. I mean, a little bit of a sing-songy moment with Sven, but he didn't really have his own big solo number in this movie. He did, and so it's kind of neat to see him working through some of the lines and some of the layered voices into making that song. It's really kind of neat. But what makes it even more neat is when you marry that moment and the different vocal levels involving all the reindeer, and match it up with the young girl I talked about earlier, who has to animate that sequence, and she's given that task, and in order for her to properly animate things, she actually records herself lip syncing the different parts and then pastes her video face on top of each of the reindeer, and she actually showed the camera crew recording the documentary what she did, and it's absolutely cute. It's hilarious to see how by looking at her own face and how she wanted to express this different notes for each one, how she was going to animate the mouths and the movements of the head and everything else for that sequence. It's some weird kind of alchemy that I honestly have no skill for myself, but I can fully appreciate. This stuff is just an astounding bit of work. So the music, the animation, the actors, the voices, and the story. Now, this is not to tell you that everything is moving smoothly in this. This goes from at least a year out before. I mean, work on this pre-production goes years in advance of this, but this documentary pretty much starts a year in advance, like January 2019, and the movie's not supposed to come out until December. And they're still working, and they barely have not even 20% of the movie done at that point, animated. and there's still lots to be done. One of the biggest struggles they have is Anna's big number toward the middle of the film, where she has followed the voice to a new place, to the unknown, and the song isn't connecting. And you see everybody, the producer, the directors, the songwriters, all of them getting really frustrated. And yes, when you have reality kind of situations, this isn't a reality show. Sometimes people try to make it more elevated, and I'm pretty sure in some cases they had to edit some stuff out in order to keep this rated G. So, but yeah, you can tell there's a little bit of tension in making this movie come to life to keep up the high standards. So to me, it's I love it. I love that kind of behind the scenes stuff. So I'm adding the rest of this. It's only 4 more episodes for me, and they're run about a half an hour to 44 minutes each, so give or take. But yeah, it's, to me, this I love this kind of stuff, and plus Kristen Bell's in it, so it's not a bad thing. I always enjoy Kristen Bell in anything, and I'll probably watch episode 3 at some point very soon. But we're gonna pick tomorrow's episode for this right now. So I highly recommend this if you love behind the scenes stuff and you want to see how. There's certain things to be said about keeping the fantasy alive, kind of disconnecting it from reality. But if you want to see how the whole thing gets made, you kind of want to check into this. Even if you're not a big fan of Frozen stuff, you still might enjoy it. Anyway, here we go. Let's pick tomorrow's episode.
270.
270. Man, we're hanging out in the 200s. I already opened this. Come on. 270. Okay. Well, man, we've gotten a lot of documentaries in the last, a lot of documentaries and reality specials in the last week or so, at least the last 2 weeks. So many of these. We got one more, but also, just as some of the others did, it has to do with dogs. It's A Dog's Life with Bill Farmer. I think it's a series. I imagine it's not a single episode or a movie or whatever, documentary. So yeah, we'll watch. If it's a series, we'll watch 1 or 2 episodes to see how it goes, and come back here to talk all about it. Okay? Well, then I guess I'll see you tomorrow with It's A Dog's Life with Bill Farmer on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. I'll see you back here tomorrow.